I stuffed a shirt or two into my old carpet bag, tucked it under my arm, and started for Cape Horn in the Pacific. Quitting the good city of Old Manhattan, I duly arrived in New Bedford. It was on a Saturday night in December. Much was I disappointed upon learning that the little packet for Nantucket had already sailed, and that no way of reaching that place would offer till the following Monday. Now, having a night, a day, and still another night following before me in New Bedford, ere I could embark for my destined port, it became a matter of concernment where I was to eat and sleep meanwhile. It was a very dubious-looking, nay, a very dark and dismal night, bitingly cold and cheerless. I knew no one in the place. With anxious grapnels I had sounded my pocket and only brought up a few pieces of silver. So, wherever you go, Ishmael, said I to myself as I stood in the middle of a dreary street shouldering my bag and comparing the gloom towards the north with the darkness towards the south. Wherever in your wisdom you may conclude to lodge for the night, my dear Ishmael, be sure to inquire the price, and don't be too particular. Welcome to PequodPod, the podcast on the wonder world of Herman Melville. My name is Tristan.
I'm Meg.
And call me Jonny, but no more of this blubbering now. We are going a-whaling.
One of the things I'd really like to do is talk to somebody about the name Pequod, because the name Pequod is from the Native American tribe.
It's a tribe, yeah.
Did you know that that's what they were going to call Starbucks, the coffee chain? And then the marketing department said, absolutely fucking not.
Never in a million years in your wildest dreams.
Yeah, that's true. That's not a joke. That was actually a thing that was going to happen.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The difficulties with pea coffee.
Yes, the best of pea coffee.
Should have been their tagline. Pequod's the best of pea coffee.
The best of pea coffee.
Gosh.
So I've got a question for you, Jonny.
Well, let's hear it.
Now, you are of an English provenance, but you've got an infatuation, obviously, with Italy, having devoted a whole PhD to Italian literature. So, Do you drink tea or do you drink coffee?
Oh, I don't believe in limiting oneself. I drink both.
Okay.
I probably am slightly more coffee oriented than tea, but I think they have slightly different functions.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee first thing in the morning, and then maybe tea a bit later in the day.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So in my soul, I'm definitely a coffee person, but I try not to overdo coffee because, living in Italy spoiled me, right? I can't do American coffee anymore. I can't do drip coffee. It gives me a headache. It's not concentrated enough caffeine, and it just doesn't generally taste as good. So, for me, it's got to be espresso if I'm drinking coffee, but I can't drink espresso all day, or else I'll have a heart attack. So it's tough. So typically for me, I'll drink an English breakfast tea in the morning, and then I do coffee midway through the day as a pick-me-up, like I'm doing right now.
That's classy. I mean, it's 20 to 6 where I am, so by rights I shouldn't really be having coffee at this point. But hey ho, it does sound good.
It is. It's very good. And you're enjoying a hot beverage, Meg. Is that true?
A very hot, over microwave breakfast cup of...
You cooked the cup.
I know. Can you believe it?
No.
Yeah, it just means that she lasts longer. This is my handy Zabar's mug, which I bought when I get their chocolate babka around Christmas time. This is a Taylor's Scottish breakfast tea.
Uh-huh.
I like black tea that could fill a pothole, basically. So I steep it for 2-3 hours. You make it, you forget it, and then you come back and you have to kind of tend to it. Yeah.
It's
really,
a
really
girthy
strong
mug as well. It looks as if you've got about 3 liters of tea in it.
I got a lot to do. I got a lot of thinking.
Busy day, out comes the Zabar's mug.
Yes. Yeah, the Zabar's mug, for sure.
Jonny, do you have an opinion? I feel like Brits have opinions on microwave tea. Do you have opinions on this, or is this a...
Listen, we don't tea shame on this podcast. I wouldn't reheat a cup of tea myself, but I'll defend to the death Meg's right to do it.
Love it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't microwave it to make the tea. I want to be clear about that. I have a
Oh, no,
nice
no, that
electric
would be-
kettle, but you know, you sip
that would
and
be
then
vulgar and boorish and gauche. I wasn't suggesting that you do that. No,
we have some standards here at this jolly inn.
Yeah.
We don't microwave the water for the tea,
Too
but we do to
expensive and jolly.
reheat it. It's all about the container it's inside. It's all about the circumstance. Anything can be made classy if you just got to frame it the right way. As our friend learns when he really wants to go inside but keeps stopping himself.
I think what he says about Queequeg later is that anything done coolly is done genteelly.
Yes, very nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Queequeg is so
cool. He's the coolest.
Oh, he's just the zenest guy. Oh yes, it's when he's eating steaks with his harpoon, isn't it?
But yeah,
which is fantastic.
Really genteel. Oh yeah.
So today we're on chapter 2, the carpet bag.
Oh, I've forgotten what happens in carpet bag.
Not much, but also a lot.
He drastically underprepares to go on a whaling voyage, doesn't he?
It's like I'm not going to need
a couple of shirts. That'll do, surely.
So Meg, you've been doing a fantastic job with these little synopses of what these chapters or various extracts and whatnot are. Would you mind giving us a brief summary of what we've got here today?
I would love to. We haven't gotten too metaphysical yet, so these are still pretty easy. Trying to ignore, the sound of thunder coming from down the horizon. In any case, chapter 2, the carpet bag. Melville begins the chapter through the depiction of a universal frustration, which is what a pain in the ass it is to get to Cape Cod. Ishmael has missed his boat, so he cannot get to Nantucket, which is an island. So he's stuck in New Bedford for the night, which is coastal, obviously, but not on the Cape. So he's like, well, okay, I've got a little bit of money. I have 2 shirts. He's a light packer. There are some of us who pack as if we're going to have some sort of attack of the gut twice a day. This has never happened, but what if it did? Ishmael is of the other one where he's kind of like, they have shirts there.
2 shirts for a year's-long whaling voyage.
It's what he's like a 19-year-old guy. You can't tell him anything. In any case, he has a little bit of money. So he's walking through the dark, cold streets Saturday night in December, trying to find an inn. And the thing is that there seem to be a lot of places where he could go, but he keeps rejecting them as like too nice. The word he uses is jolly. It's too jolly inside. Seems to be equating warmth and like niceness with it's too pricey. So he prices himself out of going into a couple places. He takes a few steps inside what he thinks is going to be maybe like a cheaper looking place that's kind of smoky, trips over something, and everyone turns around and he realizes he has inadvertently stumbled inside an African-American church, like during service, and he kind of like backs out. And he's like, well, that's not for me. And finds then a sign hanging, very cinematic, like hanging in the, creaking in the air is what it says. It says the Spouter Inn, which is managed by one Peter Coffin. And he goes, well, that sounds a little ominous, as if he's in a book. But as he says, and as is true, Coffin is a common name in those parts and is not necessarily denotive of anything. And he says, well, I'll try this place. He thinks about Lazarus for a minute, which we can discuss. I would love to know what that means. And then he kind of is like, well, enough of that, enough of the storytelling. Let's get on with the book. I'm going to go inside and see what this hotel is like.
Yeah. So let's go back to that very first line for a second. And I think you're right. I think some of us young men, I actually don't have any idea how old you two are. So I'm 29, so I'm still, I'm still youthful. I still, I'm not quite the next year up. In which case I assume I'll drop dead instantly at the age of 30.
Yeah.
I feel like
your knees stop working, which at least is something that happens.
Does that make me the dusty old man of the podcast, being 30 and therefore, by Tristan's logic, dead?
I suppose so.
Well,
Yes,
I'm the
yes.
old maid. I'm the oldest person in this Zoom, which I just realized, and we won't talk about it anymore.
All right, perfect. Yeah. So, being the picture of youth from the perspective of the podcast. Yeah, young men
You're
don't pack very
glowing.
much.
Representative young man.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Young men don't pack much. But one of the things I thought was interesting, and as always, I always have my religious studies hat on, is so he specifically packs. Let's see. Let me pull it up because I thought it was interesting. I stuffed a shirt or two into my old carpet bag, which again we have this ambiguity like we had in chapter 1, right? Where it's like, is it little money or is it no money? Is this your name? And so we have this ambiguity again. And then specifically, if we go to the New Testament, right? So we've got a couple different. So in Mark, Luke, and Matthew, so our synoptic gospels, we have the same story where Jesus commands them they should take nothing for their journey save a staff. So in Mark, we have save a staff only, no scrip, no bread, no money in their purse, but be shod with sandals and not put on 2 coats. So like, don't bring an extra coat with you when you're going off to evangelize. And it's kind of interesting. I'm going to go on this tangent. So when we get to Luke and Matthew, you've got a little bit of a change, right? So he said, and he said unto them, take nothing for your journey, neither staves nor pack, neither bread, neither money, neither have 2 coats apiece. And Matthew does the same change where, so Matthew and Luke don't take a staff with you. Mark says, yeah, go ahead, take a staff with you. But going back to this idea of
staff.
That's controversial.
Yeah. Me pointing that out, we're probably doomed as a podcast now. All of our audience on the evangelical right is going to hate us now. But so like in this case, Jesus is saying, don't bring two shirts, right? Just stick with the one. And so like, to me, there's an ambiguity there. And I feel like I got, Melville is such a close reader of so many things. I think the ambiguity is intentional, especially when we get some other parts of the chapter where I see like pretty either explicit or implicit religious allusions. So like, is Ishmael following this this Christian or like this commandment from Jesus to like when they're traveling to not bring extra stuff? Is
Take
he
no thought for the morrow?
Yeah, exactly, right. So is he following that or not? With his bringing 1 or 2 shirts?
1 or 2 shirts.
1 or 2 shirts.
That's fun. I have such a non biblical as literature background that everything I sounds great. I'll believe anything you say.
If I say
I also think
enough, yeah.
Tristan came out the gate with something absolutely fantastic, a gorgeous piece of sort of theological analysis, and I'm still sat here thinking that the phrase carpet bag just makes me think of Mary Poppins. Because she has that magic carpet bag, right? With and she gets the lamp out and the mirror, and then there's the reflection that sings back to her. I suppose we could say that, like Mary Poppins' carpet bag, there is a lot to unpack in this chapter. That's how I'll bring it back round. But
love it. Now let's talk about that too. So there's a class component to this, right? So like I wasn't very familiar with like the idea of a carpet bag until I was doing some research for this episode. But like it's specifically kind of like it's not a trunk, right? It's not like something that you're going to have your porter carry for you. That's like a nice piece of luggage. This is a carpet bag. This is like when you're roughing it when you're like this young guy, and it's not necessarily the nicest of bags ever.
No, and it's designed for somebody traveling light as well.
Yes.
So it comes back to that real strangeness of, okay, why are you packing so little to go on this voyage, which is going to take years and years?
No, definitely. Yeah. So Meg, what are your observations? Like taking a glance at the chapter, what stood out to you?
Just taking a glance, I'm seeing some fun. I like the shirt or 2. I'm looking at it less like literally is he only bringing 2 shirts and more of just kind of like a casualness with which he's telling us what happens, which I think is really sweet.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to not talk about J.D. Salinger too much, but we could just sort of the way he's like, or something, or kind of. And it's like I think there's some authors who don't like that, and fair enough if you kind of want your prose. There is something to be said for being incredibly specific. I think there's another version of this opening paragraph where he like, I brought these 2 shirts and one was like this and one was like this. And we could get a lot of joy out of like, what kind of shirts were these guys wearing? Because I don't know. He could say anything. But I like the idea that he stuffs a shirt or two into my old carpet bag, and I started for Cape Horn. Of course, he doesn't start for Cape Horn. He's trying to get to Nantucket. But that's a cute way of saying, like, and I began my journey by getting stuck overnight because I missed my train. And you're like, Ishmael, what can you do? Which I think is sweet. But the I think it's just, I think it just makes him sound young, and not dumb, like he's bad at packing, but more just like, just threw some stuff in my suitcase and just kind of went out the door. Like he's just full of like vim and vigor, which I think is sweet.
Yeah.
I really like this paragraph where he's saying, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to get it on a Nantucket ship. If it's not a Nantucket ship, it's like, well, then what are we doing? He says, for my mind was made up to sail in no other than a Nantucket craft, because there was a fine, boisterous something about everything connected with that island, which amazingly pleased me.
Yeah. No,
I like, he can say almost anything, but he says a fine, boisterous something, which I think is such a good way to describe something where you're just like, I just love it there. It's got a boisterous something. And you're like, yeah, it's boisterous.
Tristan is a fine, boisterous something.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I've always said it.
One of the things, like digging into Melville's biography a little bit. So when he wrote Moby-Dick, he had never actually visited Nantucket yet.
He'd never been. Yeah.
I think it's got this fine, boisterous something about it, right? And he did eventually visit, like after he had written the book. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's good enough at describing things he hasn't seen, but maybe that's why there's this, there's this shit about Nantucket that I can't really describe into the same level of detail.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Well, wait till we get to the chapter that's called Nantucket, which opens Nantucket, take out a map and look at it. That's all Melville has done.
Oh, I love it. That's one of my favorite.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. I'm like, yes, yeah, I've been there. He's been to a hotel, though. Like, he's been cold before. You can kind of tell where he's like, oh, here's how you take apart a whale, and where he's kind of like, zooms back. You're like, fair enough. Yeah.
It's interesting, especially because of the importance of New Bedford to all things Melville. They've got the marathon Moby-Dick reading, which we're locking it in. We're going to this next one. I'll see you both there. We'll be there.
Like the Stones.
Anyway, I'm speaking it into existence. We're gonna go to the Moby-Dick marathon. It's gonna be great.
Manifest.
Yeah, I'm manifesting it. But New Bedford does not get like a good rap from Herman Melville, considering it's like this epicenter of all things. He does not seem to think very much of New Bedford.
Well, I think it's funny that again, I think it's worthwhile to every once in a while remember, be like, this book was written, and thinking about less of it as the finished thing. He could have easily have had Ishmael not miss his boat, and then it did take part from Nantucket, or he could have been like, and I really wanted to get on a New Bedford boat, and then that worked out. But rather that he the thing that happens, which is he wanted to go to this place, but he couldn't, so he was stuck here. And then it turns out that the momentum for that is gonna actually take us to sea. But the idea that the entirety of the enormity of the ship that he does get on is a product of he was late and missed like the ferry, basically. And a lot of, we could make a list of like really good like movies that are like, whoops, I got to get a taxi and there's a stranger in there, like, oh, I have to wait for the next train. And that the idea of all of this is the product of like a 30-second time jump, or like I got off on the wrong bus stop and now I gotta, the idea of like, it wasn't, especially when we're thinking about fate. Oh, well, what if I had gotten on that ferry at the right time? And what was it preordained? Was that my preordainment going on the ocean that I could see leaving without me? Or was it to be here? I think that's really funny coming off of the stuff we've already said.
Though I cannot tell why this was exactly yet, now that I recall the circumstances, I think I can see a little into the springs and motives, which being cunningly presented to me under various disguises induced me to set apart performing the part that I did. Here's one of those springs you're talking about. Springs and motives.
Absolutely.
Sage hands of fate.
It's wonderful, though, because the chapter actually does that in several different ways. It seems to me that actually there are quite a few moments where Melville offers us several alternative plots. So yeah, exactly how things might have turned out differently. What if he had managed to catch his boat? What if he picked one of the expensive Jolly Inns rather than actually settling on the Spouter Inn? There's kind of a sense that any number of things could have happened, and therefore the plot could have turned out differently. But it just seems, as you've both been intimating, that there's the hand of fate is marshalling him kind of ineluctably towards the Pequod and towards the voyage. And to what you were saying, Meg, like, Melville doesn't have to show us that mechanism. It's not serving the plot as such. So it's really interesting that he's making that so explicit for us. Yeah, precisely as a part of the way that the narrative is working here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's dig into this contrast between the New Bedford and Nantucket for a minute. So one of the things that, like, you know, part of this fine voice or something, and also some of our first like racialized language, like that's very explicit, that we get in Moby-Dick, comes with like this idealization of Nantucket, right? So Nantucket's supposed to be the Tyre of New Bedford's Carthage, but then also where else? So the place where the first dead American whale was stranded. Where else but from Nantucket did those Aboriginal whalemen, the Red Men, first sally out in canoes to give chase to the Leviathan? And so I think, like, you know, part of this like keenness to specifically sail out of Nantucket comes from like this pedigree that he ascribes, like this sort of Aboriginal pedigree of whaling, which he pinpoints in Nantucket. So if he's going to go whaling, he has to go whaling from here, where like this is like the source, like the well springs of whaling.
And it's interesting as well that it's the dead American whale as the place. First of all, we ought to say that's almost certainly not true, but also the fact that it's a dead American whale. There's a sense that a nationality is being imposed upon the animal because it's landed on the shores. But actually, as we've sort of started actually to say in other episodes, the whale is kind of everywhere and nowhere. It's certainly not, the whale is certainly not an American product, or at least, you know, it's only that in the way that the American whale fishery objectifies it and turns it into a series of different products, right?
Yeah. And I think we see here where we do get, like, throughout the book, like a strong national chauvinism from Melville on whaling. And then relatedly, you know, Melville is very self-conscious of like the idea of developing an American literature that's like separate, or like, you know, like not just like an extension of like English literature. And so I think that is important to him. And like he takes great pride in like specifically the American whaling industry, or like he, you know, to what extent like he necessarily feels that way, but like, you know, he has like this chauvinism towards American whaling and like an American whale boat.
I think Ishmael certainly does. Ishmael will, in some of the coming pages, put great stock in being an American whaleman as opposed to the way that the Dutch did it, or the British whaleboats, or like the French. And he's like, no, we're certainly best. I think in other Melville works, we'll see how he, again, this will be in 2-3 years, when we'll all be in our decrepit 30s. Join me. The way that he feels kind of complicated about in what ways do Americans sort of like puff themselves up. But certainly in this paragraph, he at least has Ishmael discuss how it's in the air, the instinct towards this great whaling tradition on Nantucket.
Yes.
Certainly there were Native Americans doing what they could with the sea creatures everywhere, but on Nantucket is where he wants to go. So he's already, what is Ishmael doing at least, or Melville is having Ishmael sort of put himself again, like he was doing on Manhattan, in this, to use your word, Tristan, pedigree of the seagoer and the whaler. We know he hasn't done, do we know it yet? We'll know it soon. He hasn't whaled before, but he's like,
he's not whaled before, yes.
I'm going to go, if you're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And I'm going to start from Nantucket, and I'm not going to do this like off-brand nonsense from like New Jersey. He's going to go to the best place. And maybe that's part of why he's packing light, because he wants to start like totally fresh. And this is all I need. And he's been to sea, but he hasn't done it this way. So putting himself in this, as you've said, like, necessarily very racialized language of like, oh, the people who were, you know, even even those people who like didn't have our beautiful, huge whaling ships and the buckets and the tar or whatever, they were still doing it in this fantastic way. And I want to be part of that lineage that we have sort of like annexed and made it even greater than it could have possibly been. I'm going to be a part of it. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it there.
Yeah. So
that
go
feeds
ahead, John,
back into something that we were saying when we were talking about loomings, right? The fact that we see the Ishmael to whom the events of the narrative are happening, mediated by the Ishmael who has been through all of those events.
Yeah, the time.
And what part of that process involves him being kind of sublimated into a whaling community, but it does seem to be one actually that Ishmael himself is constructing. It's remarkable how quickly he starts using phrases like "we whalemen." You know, he stakes his claim to a part in that community so quickly. Maybe that feeds back into into that kind of youthfulness that we were talking about. And again, something else that we were talking about when we were talking about our first impressions of Ishmael in Loomings, that sense that he's got this really strong desire to belong, but also to be an individual.
That's good.
Yeah. So until then, though, we're stuck in New Bedford, right? And we're stuck in New Bedford, and
with all these expensive, jolly inns.
Yeah. And it becomes, so religious studies hat back on, becomes a matter of concernment where I was to eat and sleep, which to me, very like much so, like the first line we get in this chapter instantly makes me think of Jesus, right? And so specifically, you had mentioned it earlier. So Matthew chapter 6, therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor yet for your body, what you shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body more than raiment? Once we get to Matthew 6:34, which is my favorite verse in the entire Bible, take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, which is words I live by. Sufficient unto the day. But Ishmael can't do that, right? He can't live by the words of Jesus. He's got to, it is becoming a matter of concernment where he's going to eat, where he's going to sleep. And all he's got is these few pieces of silver, which again is going to hit me right in the head. What's Judas compensated for when he betrays Jesus? A few pieces of silver.
30 pieces of silver, which is the combined total of money that Queequeg and Ishmael have when they're in the Spouter Inn.
Oh my goodness! I did not hit on that. That makes it even more perfect. So yeah, no, like here again, like we had in Loomings, Ishmael's not able to live up to like these commandments of Jesus, right? And he has to, in order to live in this deeply unromantic world, this deeply capitalistic world, he has to betray this. And like you get, like you just said beautifully, a direct parallel there.
That's so funny. You're seeing Christ everywhere, and I'm just like, he's Holden Caulfield. It's cold. Yeah, I think it's funny that jolly seems expensive and jolly. He uses it, at least he repeats himself. He says again, he repeats himself consciously. I think something that jumping to the end when he talks about the way in which you become warm is important. If he was to go in amongst these rich people, that warmth has there's like an ethics behind it that is different than if he could warm himself or if they let him go in for free. We'll get into it. But he does try to go in somewhere. He thinks he finds a nice place and then he falls down. Ishmael, do you accomplish a task in this chapter? It seems like he does not.
Well, to be fair, I think it would be difficult to style out the kind of pratfall that he has and actually then go into that particular place. Like I would have to walk away from that situation as well. I find that very, very relatable.
Yeah. So like I was trying to figure out what's going on in this scene, right? And so the first thing like he stumbles up the ash, then he asks, are these the ashes from that destroyed city, Gomorrah? And then specifically something that blew me away was that it seemed the great black parliament sitting in Tophet. And I didn't know what Tophet was. But Tophet is where children were sacrificed via fire to Moloch in the Old Testament. And so specifically Ishmael, who I really view as like being, if not entirely a child, definitely like a youth of some kind, right? He stumbles over this ash box and he's entering this place. And there's a direct mirroring of that imagery to like the way children were sacrificed at Tophet, where they're like put into this this burning brazier. And so I view this as being like kind of what we get repeatedly is like Ishmael as like this kind of cast off, sacrificed, rejected child, basically, that's like kind of devoured by the world. But yeah.
And I, another orphan. I mean, it's how he will, at a certain point in the novel, no spoilers, that's how he will refer to himself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what did you think of that section, Meg?
Oh, I was just going to say, looking at this annotated version of the chapter on Power Moby-Dick, a website I like a lot, it says, just because I didn't know this, like it'd be useful to say that what the ash box is it's basically what they would use we would now salt the road when it gets icy, or put rocks out if you live in Oregon where they didn't use salt. But they're spreading ash. It's to put on the road so you can walk on it. So it's what the ash box is like doing there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that like every person who went to church was like, that's the ash box, don't step in it. But Ishmael he's a little confused. It's dark. He has not eaten for a while, perhaps. Likewise, the black parliament that he's saying is sitting in top of, he's using never accuse him of not mixing a metaphor. But the black parliament here, it says on this reference page, is a reference to parliament in the UK, either the Scottish or the English King's Parliament. So that's like an established thing that a reader may or may not have been familiar with, but he's mixing those two different what do you call it? Communities is not the right word, but like these two completely different national mythologies when he's in that one line when he's blending people. Then he makes a huge noise and everyone looks around at him and he's like, my bad. And just kind of like exits himself.
slow backs away.
I think, yeah, it is. And like, I know we're about to talk about it, but this is another place that he community detizes himself. Like he's trying to find a place where he can go. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that even this like white guy could have been like, sorry, does anyone have any hardtack? I'm trying to find a place to sleep. Can I sit here until you're done? Like there's another version of this chapter where he speaks up and he's like, my bad, can we do something? And maybe even a few chapters down the road where he feels more comfortable with himself amongst the town, he might have done that. But they look at him, he's like, I don't belong here either, and leaves. He absents himself. So this is another community where he has decided without asking anybody that he can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way that he feels like he still does not quite belong here. It's issues of race and class. So he can't belong to any of the people who, in theory, he can. This is like a regular town. His money would have worked at those rich places for fewer nights, but he could have done it. He could have sat in that church and just been like, yes, I am a Baptist, and like it would have worked. It would have been fine. But he has decided that he can't in his own mind, based on whatever stories he was already telling himself about himself. So when he's like at the end of the chapter, well, enough of this, let's go inside this inn, he's decided this place meets his like criteria for the box of place that I can stay the night. And these other places fail by whatever measures he's decided are important.
He's built a narrative for himself, and this doesn't really seem to be a part of it. And of course, and it's characterized by barriers being up. And in a couple of chapters' time, in fact, actually from the next chapter onwards, we will start to see those barriers actually start to come down. And we will start to get what turns out, I think, to be quite a beautiful sense of belonging in several different ways in Ishmael.
Yeah, and so specifically what I found interesting about this turn here, right? So he leaves the African American church where the preacher's text was about the blackness of darkness and the weeping and wailing and teeth gnashing there. So he's leaving the blackness of darkness, and what is the sign of the Spouter Inn? It's there's a swinging sign over the door with a white painting upon it. So like you get this color imagery, but also like racial imagery, right? So he's like very specifically he's spray. He goes from the blackness of darkness to specifically where there's like a white painting, and that's like
cheap white painting.
A cheap white painting, yeah.
It's like, yes, here are my people.
Yes.
Yes, and of course that anticipates beautifully the whiteness of the whale, both the fact of Moby Dick's being white, but also the chapter, the beautiful kind of rhapsodic meditation on the whiteness, not just of Moby Dick, but also of just anything that Melville can think of that is white. It's and we get the makings of that foundational tension here. Yeah, like you were saying, Tristan, between white and black. There's a wonderful kind of sense of chiaroscuro that underpins the entire text, right?
Let's talk about the spouter in. So, Jonny, what do you think of the spouter in?
Well, I mean, we don't quite get in, do we, in this particular chapter? I feel like it's the kind of place I'd like to be for an hour and like 2 drinks. And then I think I would be
it's somewhere you meet before you go to the real place that you're going, which
exactly.
is the harpoon place, obviously.
Naturally, a more expensive, jollier place.
Yes. You sort of in like the Disney version of it, he's like standing on the outside, does that thing with a sweater where he makes like a perfect clear circle in the and like it's so warm inside, it's like fogged over, and he like presses his little nose against it, and they're like dancing like a jig inside, and there's like a suckling pig, and he's like, I can't do it. And then he's like, where are my people drinking the off-brand coffee? Yes, here Ishmael can stay the night. Oh
yeah. So what do we think of poor Lazarus and dives?
This guy
at the dive.
Yeah, it's true. So I'll give you my perspective of someone who had to read this a couple times. It seems like the thrust of it is that Lazarus is on the steps outside. He's using the curbstone for his pillow, and he's very cold. And Dives is, I suppose that's how we're pronouncing it, is inside saying what a lovely cold night it is. I feel warm, but it's so beautiful outside and so cold. And Ishmael is saying, it's different for the man who observes the cold versus the man who is cold. Give me the privilege of making my own summer with my own coals. This is something that the rich people can do. And he's about to burn in hell for having the audacity of doing this sort of thing. Those rich people in their jolly hotels.
Yeah. So specifically, we're going to go back to yet another like New Testament allusion here. So this is going to come from Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 31. And I'll briefly read this. So Jesus is giving a parable, and this is what Jesus is saying. There was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. So that's our dives, okay? And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And in hell, he being Dives, the rich man, lift up his eyes, being in torments, and seeing Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receivest thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. And so basically, Dives is going to hell. But we'll get it. What I think is interesting here is Melville is basically saying, but yeah, wouldn't Lazarus right now want to be in hell, right? As he's like freezing, doesn't even the Lazarus here freezing to death, doesn't hell sound kind of nice to him?
That's funny.
And it's interesting because there is another figure in the Bible who is also called Lazarus, right? Who is the one who is resurrected. That's not the Lazarus that's being invoked here. I'm looking at Tristan as our resident theologian. He can correct me on anything. But I think it's interesting that you, in raising the one narrative, I think the other is also kind of underpinning potentially a little bit of what's going on here. After all, minor spoiler, but Ishmael ends up functioning in this story as a Lazarus, but of the other ilk.
Yeah. Right.
No,
I see that. If you want to be extremely pedantic about it,
and we do on this podcast,
we love being extremely pedantic.
That ship has sailed, and we didn't miss it.
Yeah. Technically, Lazarus was resuscitated, not resurrected. So if you're brought back to life, but you're going to die again later, you're resuscitated. Like from a theological.
He had to die again.
That's
yeah.
Yes,
but
of course.
if you're resurrected like Jesus was, you are brought back and you don't die again. So to be extremely pedantic from a theological perspective, there is a difference.
That's
between the two.
fabulous.
That's fun. There is a different word, I think, for we should tack this on to episode 0, cannibalism when you do it to survive versus cannibalism when you're doing it like Hannibal Lecter style. There's another word for it.
That makes sense.
That's bringing it back to my wheelhouse. All right. I don't know about this Lazarus stuff. Yes, the Lazarus who gets revitalized is the one that I was familiar with. Could Christ have come up with a second name?
It's poor narrative writing, isn't it? It's
like everyone was named Miriam. It's like there was like a Tiffany back there somewhere we could have talked about.
There's only so many names back then. There's multiple Jesuses, multiple Marys. There's so many Marys. Oh my goodness.
It's like Cinna the poet in Julius Caesar, who gets torn for his bad verses, not because they think he's Cinna the conspirator, he's not, but they kill him anyway. There can't be more than one sinner in that play.
Yeah, but I do like, Meg, that you're really leaning into your role as our resident cannibalism expert. We do need to have a resident cannibalism expert on the show for sure.
Every podcast has one.
Yeah.
Now so do we. Now so do we. Can I mention one interesting thing?
Please do.
You can mention several.
Oh, great. When he's talking about the front of the spouter, and we don't go in, but he's looking at it. And he's writing about the wind that's tossing Paul's craft, which is fun. And then he starts to quote
Euroclydon,
I would think.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really beautiful little dinosaur. But then he starts to quote something, and judging of that tempestuous wind called Euroclydon, says an old writer, of whose works I possess the only copy extant. And then the quote goes on. What's up with that?
We're back
that's
to
Melville, right? Like that's not a real book.
Well, we're back to the extracts. We're back to from something
this is the
unpublished.
Second time he's creating like an encyclopedia that's not real. And so our job is to say, one, that's cute, that that's interesting. What is this quote doing superficially just for this thing that he's talking about the wind? But then why does Melville feel the need to create a pretend source? What are we doing by making this library out of things that really it's just him, where he could just say, hey, isn't this thing cool? He has to say, I've got this rare book. Along with my 2 shirts, I have a rare book. What do you guys think about that? What's up with that?
Yeah, Jonny, I want to hear from you about that. I do have something to say about the Euroclydon, but I want to hear what you think about this literary device.
It's absolutely fascinating, and I think it really adds so many layers to this text's relationship with verisimilitude. Right, we spent a long time when we were talking about the extracts, talking about, okay, what gives Melville / Ishmael the authority to sit down and sort of regale us for 700 pages about whaling, and this is adding just such a fascinating thread to that. I suppose we could call it an example of what we'd call historiographic metafiction, which is to say a text that claims to be historically true, but which has lies threaded through it. And it's such a strange, because this is so obviously what's going on. Melville is not burying the lead at all here. He seldom does. CF, coffin, spouter, rather ominous in that particular connection, thought I. He's so much of what's going on is so surface level. And this is an example of precisely that, I think. And I don't think this is even the last time that Melville will do this throughout the course of the text. I think there are further instances of this, if I'm remembering rightly. So it's clearly something that's an important device for something on the kind of the larger textual level.
Yeah, and to specifically talk about the Euroclydon, right? So this is the wind. So like a lot of in classical times, lots of the winds based on the direction they're coming from are named. And so this is the wind that's supposed to wreck Paul, the Apostle Paul's ship, right? So even here we have another allusion to shipwrecks with the specific wind that's being discussed. And to go from Paul to Peter, we also have a Peter, right? So he's Peter Coffin. So this is a triply, like with the spouter in, but like doubly like a morbid name. Where Coffin, obvious, right? But Peter, the Apostle Peter, supposed to be the one at the pearly gates that like lets you in or not, right?
I wonder what he's going to be standing under in the next chapter. Could it be a whale's jaw, which is a parodic version of the pearly gates?
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Bit of sizzle for the next step. Bit of sizzle.
Oh yeah.
Tune in, find out what happens. Yeah.
No, this is great. No, wonderful. Well, we will have a lot to talk about on chapter 3, the spouter in. We're actually going to break it up into 2 episodes because it's a meaty chapter. There's too much. We already feel like an hour with like some of these. What I expect to be. Oh, is this going to be? Is there enough content in chapter 2 for a whole episode? Yeah, there's an hour's worth of things we can discuss. But this has been great. We'll see you all then. And thank you all very much for tuning in to PequodPod.
You've been listening to the PequodPod with Tristan Bavol-Marques, Meg Fancher, and Jonny Wiles. You can support the show by visiting patreon.com/PequodPod, throw us a doubloon or two for some bonus content, and to help to keep the show going full sail. Thank you for listening, and until next time, call us the PequodPod.